I'm going to speak about the three relationship patterns. We can see this especially in close or intimate relationships, high intensity relationships. I'm going to be covering the three patterns, what they are, what they look like. But before we talk about the patterns, all three patterns consist of two components, or two styles, if you like. The first style or role is the approach role, and the second is the withdrawal role. Some people call this the pursuer withdrawal. I just talk about approach. Now, there are two roles, and most people lean towards one of these roles. There are combinations of these things playing out, of course, that can happen, but I'll just leave that for now. Now, an approach role, what does it look like? This is someone who proactively engages. They will, if they feel something in themselves, in the relationship, or notice emotions or in the other person, their way of experiencing is going to push them towards engaging. Now, to be careful here, this engagement can take on many different forms. It's not just positive. It's just that what they will be doing is to engage. The second role or style is withdrawal. This is someone who, when they experience something either in themselves or coming from the other person, they will withdraw. They will retreat. They will close down. Now, in terms of fight, flight, and freeze, we can map these. An approach role is typically a fight role, right? And a withdrawal role is typically a flight or freeze role. Okay, that's important to just clarify what they look like. Remember, this is no value judgment about either of these, and neither of these are actually preferred. Now, approach or withdrawal, and let me talk about the three patterns. The first pattern is the most common. It is approach withdrawal. I see this a lot in couples. There's one partner who is the approacher or the pursuer. They are more proactive. They will typically actively engage the other person. They will chase the person. They will pull them into arguments. They will pull them into conversations. They will not let things go. They cannot usually tolerate whether it's their own distress or the distress of the other person, to stay and be tolerated and stay unresolved. They have to keep engaging. Now, this across a relationship, what this means is they're the person that takes the initiative to have difficult conversations or any conversations. They're constantly pulling the other person into talking about this stuff or talking about what is going on. Now, you can see already as I'm describing this can be a good thing, but it can very easily become something very negative in terms of the experience of both. So the more the person is trying to engage the other one, the more the other person, the withdrawal, will close down. Now, all of this is directly connected to what's happening in the individual, their formative experiences and the learned ways of dealing with generally distress, right? And one approach is to try and engage and resolve and talk about it and process it and make sense of it and give meaning to it. And the other one is to close down and to go into a different type of survival state, because fight, flight, and freeze are all survival states. One's not better than the other. And the survival state of closing down, of protecting the self, of becoming defensive, of deflecting, of all of those different things. Each of the styles or roles have a whole set of potential behaviors in which this can manifest. So you can see that both of them actually have a place. There's a place in a healthy relationship to proactively engage and have conversations and talk about the difficult stuff. Without that in a relationship, the relationship will not be healthy. Just like a relationship where it is not possible to retreat and step away and not over-discuss and not over-interpret something that has happened, and to let things go is actually also part of a healthy relationship. So approach and withdraw in itself is neither good or bad. when it comes to relationship patterns, we're talking about these roles becoming stuck. That means the people who are fulfilling these roles over time, they keep doing it and they don't know how to get out of it. But not only is it because they're stuck, it's also they're stuck to the role of the other partner. So when we're talking about approach-withdrawal, the more the person approaches, the more the other one withdraws. Which also means the more the one person withdraws or doesn't talk about it, the more the other person gets activated and tries to do the same. And this is where the patterns, all three patterns, become really problematic. So if the first one is approach-withdrawal, the second one is approach-approach. That means the roles they are taking are symmetrical, they are the same. Approach-withdrawal is complementary, so they are escalating in different behaviors. Approach behavior leads to an escalation of withdrawal behavior. Withdrawal behavior leads to an escalation of approach behavior. So they are complementary. Not complementary in a positive sense, and complementary in the sense that they are different types of behavior. Whereas the next two patterns, approach-approach and withdrawal-withdrawal, are symmetrical patterns. That means the more the one person approaches, the more the other one approaches. Now you can see what will happen in this. There will be an increased escalation of the same types of behavior, and that's why in an approach relationship, what you typically see is an escalating sort of intensity, a potential escalation of problematic behaviors. This is important to just pause here and highlight this. The issue is not approach or withdrawal. Neither of them is good or bad. The issue with relationship patterns is the nature of the actual behaviors that you will be able to see within a relationship. Not just interactions, but in an actual conversation. So an approach relationship, what you will see as a spiraling escalation of sameness. So it's symmetrical, it's the same type of behavior. The more angry I get, the more angry my partner gets. The louder I speak, the louder they speak. The more I tell them they're useless, the more they tell me I'm insensitive. And whatever that's are, you can see how the behavior just escalates. So approach behaviors are more likely to lead to more aggressive and potentially abusive interactions where it's mutual in terms of the things people say to each other. Now, the third pattern is withdrawal. And I'm saying it's the third pattern because it's also, you can imagine these relationships will take longer to actually get to the point of coming to therapy because they're both withdrawing. What does this mean? The more one person shuts down, disengages, doesn't talk, the more the other one does something similar. The more we don't deal with issues, the more I just get lost in my work, or whatever that pattern is. Each engages in a withdrawal. There's a cooling down. If approach is a heating up of the relationship, withdrawal is a cooling down. This is not good. This is avoiding the issues, avoiding what needs to be done to keep the relationship healthy. Just like an approach one also leads to a spiraling which no longer can be constructive. It is important to understand each of the patterns, just like I described the roles, are linked to personal states or patterns of how we regulate ourselves in relationships. The patterns are all about survival states. That's why no pattern in itself is healthy, because they're always based on survival states that are active. So fight, flight, freeze. How do I cope with this? How do we then end up coping? And the behavior that spirals is where both people become stuck in their roles and it is no longer constructive. So approach, withdrawal. Approach, and withdrawal. All three patterns are based on the two roles, approach or withdrawal, some combination of this. And so you can see if both people historically are individuals who tend to avoid difficult conversations, can you see how their relationships, intimate relationships, may end up being withdrawal? If you have two individuals who by default are quite fiery and engaging and they don't necessarily hold on to what they feel, you can potentially have an approach pattern. Now, it is fair to say that a relationship pattern, these 3 patterns, can shift over time. So, for example, a relationship that used to be withdraw, can shift, where at some point one person starts to actually approach. And that can also have all sorts of consequences. So, what is important to keep in mind here? The behavior of each person triggers the behavior of the other person in a circular way. So there's no beginning and end. The core issue is the behaviors that constitute a pattern. And this is what I usually call destructive interactions. So there are destructive interactions specific to approach behaviors, and there are destructive interactions specific to withdrawal behaviors or to withdrawal. And this is what I usually see in relationships. And this is a key part of assessing any couple when they come in. What is the pattern? One of the 3. But what are the specific behaviors that make this problematic? Now, destructive interactions I'm not going to discuss in this video. But what I will say is just a few examples and what it means. It means that the actual things I say and do within a relationship are destructive. There's no destructive interactions in any relationship. It doesn't matter who it is with. Never leads to constructive engagement and never leads to growth and health. They're actually quite corrosive, and they have a massive impact on the other person and on the trajectory of the relationship across time. For example, approach. In terms of approach, a few destructive interactions, referencing the past, name calling, insults, assigning intent, character description. So imagine the approach person or approach role in the relationship. They are trying to engage the other person, but they're doing it in a way that can be quite harsh, can be bullying. So I'm trying to have a conversation with my partner, but the way I'm doing it is by telling them, I know you're feeling this, or I know this is what you're thinking, or I know you were doing that to hurt me. So even though then that it is approach, which you may think is positive, the way it is done is destructive, and it forces the other person into a defensive position. It's also high emotional content, which for someone who is a withdrawer will in itself be triggering their own survival response, which may be closing down, which might be either flight or actually freeze, sort of a paralysis and closing down. Now, the other side, withdrawal, the very common sort of destructive interactions, you hear about this a lot on social media. People talk about gaslighting and stonewalling. And there are a lot of other ways of leaving and exiting. Now, at the essence of it is a way of trying to cope with emotional content or emotional distress in a way that's avoidant, dismissive, disconnecting from it, not engaging with it. So you can see both the actual destructive interactions at play. They originate from survival response. They originate from ways in which we've learned how to cope with emotional distress. When they are then active in a relationship, they keep almost pinging off each other and making it worse, whichever of the 3 patterns we have. So, what is a healthy relationship? I've said a few times now, neither approach nor withdrawal is positive. The core of a healthy relationship is that it has both qualities. There should be times when we approach and engage. There should be times when we withdraw. We don't make an issue out of things. We let things go. We let things slide. And it's a balance of these two. That's a healthy relationship. It also means, a healthy relationship means neither partner gets stuck in a role. That's why I'm talking about a role. A role is part of a pattern where we're always doing the same thing. And I'm doing it and my partner's doing it and we're somehow stuck. So a healthy relationship means both people can approach and withdraw. Sometimes we need to be able to take space. Sometimes we need to not over-discuss and overthink every single thing that has happened. That's healthy. And sometimes we have to talk about difficult things. It's both. The individuals in the relationship shouldn't become stuck in the particular roles. And then a third key part of a healthy relationship is that neither one should engage destructive interactions. Neither one should engage in either approaching or withdrawing in a way that is essentially corrosive, that leads to an increased escalation of distress. And to bring this back to the individual in the relationship, to either person increasingly feeling unsafe and dysregulated. Now, no one makes you dysregulated, but we can become dysregulated in patterns. And what all these three patterns have in common is they lead to a place where neither person is okay. Neither person feels safe. Neither person feels their basic needs are being met. And they keep spiraling. They keep spiraling in different ways, whichever the pattern is.